Well, Chad, we almost have the semifinals for the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix set. One side of the bracket now, you have Chael Sonnen versus Fedor Emelianenko. The other side, you got your boy Matt Mitrione awaiting the winner of Bellator Light Heavyweight Champion Ryan Bader and King Mo. So you got yourself a legit, just straight up light heavyweight fight pretty much there. The winner's going to fight maybe the most physically legit heavyweight left in the tournament after that. And then from there, presumably, it's hard to imagine this distant future, we will get a final fight to come out of this. Now, maybe it's just that we're excited about seeing, Fedor go out there, look like the old Fedor, knock somebody out in 48 seconds. But I start to look at some of these potential matchups now, and now it starts to seem like it's a little bit of fun. Chael Sonnen versus Fedor Emelianenko. I mean, you mentioned it being kind of a cross-divisional fight, but the structure of the tournament gives Bellator some cover here. They can say, hey, look, it's not like we just put together this weird circus fight. That's just how the tournament shook out, What can we do? We made the tournament tree. This is how it happened. The same thing if Matt Mitrione ends up fighting Ryan Bader. Hey, that's just how the tournament shook out there, man. What else can you do? Is this the kind of fun that we're into from Bellator? Because it seems like a lot of what's happening here is individual matchups that look a lot like what we were seeing from the tentpole events, where you get some old guys, there'd be a weird sort of appeal to it that like a train wreck you didn't want to look away from. But the whole structure of the tournament, the fact of the tournament, seems to offer it at least this illusion of legitimacy or meaning.
Yeah, well, I think a big factor in it was that Fedor Emelianenko versus Frank Mir was not sad, right? Like, we saw a couple of 40-year-old heavyweights out there slinging heavy leather at each other, but at the same time, we didn't come away from it feeling depressed, which I think is a big factor in all of this. And then, it was kind of an awesome fight, so it gave us an emotional lift as far as the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix is concerned.
That's your bar to clear? I don't want to be sad at the end of the night?
For a Bellator event at this point, I don't know that is the bar to clear, but we have certainly come out of Bellator MMA events feeling depressed in the past.
Fair enough.
And when that happened, we come on this show and we talk about how that can't really go on for Bellator. You can't put on a fighting event wherein the end result is that everyone who watched it feels depressed. That's not going to get you over the hump. But we felt good about this one, a bunch of stoppages, several submissions, and then this knockout in the main event as part of the draw. And now it seems like we do, in fact, as you mentioned, have a bunch of fun matchups coming up in the tournament. And I think you're right that, Bellator probably got exactly what it wanted in Chael Sonnen versus Fedor Emelianenko in the semifinals of this thing. And even though it is a little bit of a freak show fight, and like I said, in round one, I can't totally wrap my mind around the fact that it's going to happen yet. I also can't fault Bellator for making a smart tournament draw, right? You can't fault them for setting this thing up so that no matter how this side of the bracket went, it was going to be pretty fun. Because, arguably, if you had got Rampage Jackson against Frank Mir in the semifinals, hashtag would watch.
Yeah.
Right? It kind of didn't matter. So, more power to, frankly, Scott Coker and Bellator for putting together at least one side of this draw in a way that was going to produce nothing but fun fights.
Right. But, we talked a little bit earlier in the listener mail about the things you get from putting together a tournament, putting just what would be otherwise just regular old fights, and you throw them into a tournament together. Danny Downs and I were talking about this a little bit, and how even though this tournament is essentially for nothing. I mean, I know the winner's going to be the Bellator heavyweight champion, but nobody is going to look at whoever comes out of this thing, no matter how it goes. Nobody's going to be like, that's the best heavyweight in the world. Nobody's even going to look at him and be like, that person is in the conversation for best heavyweight in the world. That's not what we're doing here, and we all seem to know it. And it is this collection, for the most part, of people who fit right into the Bellator model of kind of used to be in the UFC, island of misfit toys, downside of their career kind of guys, and we're bundling them all up together. And if we put them in a tournament and there's a progression to it where you can look at it and be like, okay, I care about this fight because the winner of it, I know what he's going to do next. There's a clear path. Even if the path leads nowhere. That itself seems like enough. It's a genius way kind of to take those same fights, like the Ken Shamrock versus Hoist Gracie kind of fights, Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000 kind of fights, and you make it feel like it's actually something by putting it into this tournament.
Yeah, and then one of the weird things about it is how different it feels from the Bellator tournaments of old, because you will remember that the original model of Bellator
Right.
was that they were going to do all of these tournaments, and it was the toughest tournament in sports.
Where
and it was
title shots are earned, not given.
It was the place where everything was earned and nothing was given. And then eventually they abandoned that, obviously, because tournaments are a boondoggle, and they went with more of like a straight ahead fight card to fight card, more standard type progression. And now suddenly here we are back in the tournament model. But as you said, it's sort of like the tournament model as applied to the Bellator fun fight matchmaking philosophy. And especially at heavyweight, like you're not going to find a better weight class, just to throw a bunch of shit in a bag, shake it up and dump it out and be like, oh, Chael Sonnen against Fedor, why not? You're not going to find a better weight class to do that in than the Bellator heavyweight division. So here we are. We have all these fun fights, not to mention, Ben, that it was announced this last week that Crow Cop versus Roy Nelson is one of the alternate fights here for this tournament, which surprised no one. And there would be no more MMA tournament outcome for the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix if a dude who had already lost in the draw got back in and won it, right? If Roy Nelson managed to do that. Like, what if the final is Roy Nelson against Matt Mitrione, which was also the first one?
Okay, or what if the final is Fedor Emelianenko versus Mirko Crow Cop?
Wow, you just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I feel like we just watched that on television.
That's
as
right.
part of a fever dream
Yeah.
that I had several months ago.
And woke up feeling terrible from. But hey, maybe what happens is you see, Ryan Bader or King Mo, whoever go in there, they beat Matt Mitrione, but then weirdly they end up getting sick after getting injected with some like weird plutonium thing. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying.
Went out to a happy hour with Vadim Finkelstein and
next thing you know, laid up in the hospital.
Did Matt Mitrione, upon seeing Frank Mir get knocked out of this draw, did Matt Mitrione turn into the Hanna-Barbera wolf who's sitting in front of like a huge ham that just got served to him with a knife and a fork? Is that who Matt Mitrione is now? About to feast on the ham in this tournament?
I'm sure he probably thinks so. Who do you think moves out of the last quarterfinal fight between Ryan Bader and King Mo?
Well, Ryan Bader was my initial pick to win the whole thing. If he was like, if my choice is someone in the original tournament wins this, then like Ryan Bader was my choice. And I guess I got to stick to that since that was my pick. So I got to take him over King Mo. I don't think we should forget though that like when Mitrione fought Fedor, Fedor could have won that thing, right? He knocked Mitrione down with a punch and was pretty close. So, if that's what we get in the final, if we get a Fedor versus Mitrione final, it could be another toss-up.
Yeah, we're just flipping the coin all over again. Although I appreciate Bellator, we're going to get Ryan Bader involved in the broadcast by Skyping him in from his home, where he seems to be sitting in front of an awesome old map of the Arizona territory, which makes me realize maybe I'm more interested in what the decor is like inside of Ryan Bader's home than I previously thought I was.
How much would it blow your mind if it turned out that like Ryan Bader was sitting at home writing a Western, like a series of Western novels set in old Arizona?
Oh, man. That's pretty rad, actually.
Hashtag would read. He had to minimize that shit so he could do the Skype with Bellator. Just sitting at home writing chapter 34. Anything else you want to talk about with the Bellator? What's going to be the lesson of the Bellator tournament, Ben? If this thing comes off, if we crown a heavyweight champion, let's say we put the strap on Matt Mitrione, does Bellator turn around and say we're going to do this at middleweight or welterweight, or is this a one-shot deal?
No, the lesson is going to be that you put things in a tournament and it will make them seem more important than they are. And then you get Roy McDonald, you get Lorenz Larkin, you get everybody together who is just within 40 pounds of each other, and you throw them into another tournament.
That seems right. And frankly, hashtag would watch if an entrant into that Bellator welterweight tournament is Ben Askren. We're going to talk about him in round number 3, which starts right now.